They thought she was just a poor farm girl with dirt under her nails and no one to protect her, but they had no idea the life she lived in the shadows had trained her into something far more dangerous than they could ever imagine. They thought she was just a poor farm girl with dirt under her nails, calloused hands, and clothes that smelled faintly of hay. But what the bullies didn't know was that Amara Johnson carried within her veins the discipline of warriors and the legacy of generations, and when they chose her as their target, mocking her skin, her braids, her boots caked with mud, and her quiet nature, they were unknowingly provoking a storm that had been forged in silence for years, because while others saw only a lonely black girl walking home on dusty country roads, what they did not see were the early dawn mornings where Amara trained with her grandfather behind the barn, barefoot on cold earth, learning the art of balance, breathing, and precision, being molded into a martial artist with strength that came not from size but from control, speed, and discipline. And so the story begins on a hot afternoon when Amara was leaving school, her satchel heavy with books, her mind still on the crops she needed to water before sunset, when the trio of bullies, Trevor, Colton, and Haley, decided that the quiet farm girl made the perfect victim for their cruel amusement, calling her names, shoving her shoulder, mocking her for the dirt under her fingernails and the second-hand jeans she wore, their laughter sharp as knives. But Amara, remembering her grandfather's words, never fight for pride, but only for necessity, strength is not for showing off, but for survival, kept walking, calm and composed, until Trevor blocked her path and Colton grabbed her bag, spilling her books into the dirt, and Haley sneered, saying, "What's a little farm rat like you gonna do? Cry all the way back to your chickens?" Yet in that moment, Amara's deep brown eyes shifted, no longer the eyes of a farm girl avoiding trouble but the eyes of a fighter assessing the battlefield, calculating distance, body weight, and escape routes, her breathing slowing as her training awakened like a sleeping giant, and when Trevor shoved her chest, expecting her to stumble, she moved with the push, redirecting his force so that he stumbled forward instead, nearly falling, his face flushing with anger while Colton reached out to grab her arm. But she pivoted, using his own momentum to twist his wrist and send him sprawling into the dirt with a thud, leaving him gasping in shock because no one had ever resisted him like that, much less the girl they considered weak. And when Haley lunged, thinking her strength and arrogance would overpower, Amara sidestepped, sweeping her leg low and controlled, sending Haley crashing down in a whirl of dust, her scream echoing as her pride shattered before her friends, and the silence that followed was heavy, broken only by Trevor's snarling rage as he charged like a bull, fists clenched. But Amara dropped her satchel, lowered her stance, and struck with precision, one palm strike to his chest, a pivot, and a controlled sweep that knocked him flat on his back, the air rushing from his lungs in a single pathetic wheeze, and suddenly, the so-called bullies were sprawled on the ground, their faces a mix of fear and disbelief as they realized the girl they mocked was not prey but predator, not fragile but formidable, and Amara, standing tall, her braids swaying, her chest rising and falling in steady control, said only one thing in a voice that carried both steel and calm. "Don't mistake kindness for weakness," before gathering her books and walking away, leaving them stunned in the dirt. Yet the story doesn't end there, because humiliation turned to obsession for the bullies, and in the days that followed, they plotted revenge, whispering in corners, spreading rumors about Amara. But the truth of what happened had already spread across the school, with students whispering in awe about the farm girl who had taken down 3 bullies in minutes, the legend of her strength growing, and soon curiosity replaced fear as some sought to test her while others began to admire her. And Amara, though she never wanted attention, became the center of an invisible storm, her quiet walks home now followed by eyes full of respect and fear. And when Trevor's older brother, a hot-headed football star, decided to challenge her one evening at the edge of town, sneering that no girl could outfight him, Amara refused at first, saying she did not fight for sport. But when he shoved her and tried to pin her, she unleashed a flurry of moves that left him breathless on the ground, his arrogance crushed. And with each incident, her reputation grew until even teachers began to notice, one day pulling her aside to ask where she had learned such skill. And Amara simply replied, "From my grandfather, a man who had once traveled the world competing in underground martial arts tournaments before retiring to his farm, seeking peace, and now passing on his legacy to his granddaughter." And as the bullies' hatred curdled into desperation, they hatched one final plan, cornering her in the barn late at night, armed with sticks and rage, But what they hadn't counted on was Amara's mastery of not just martial arts but the environment. She moved with the rhythm of the barn, using beams and haystacks to her advantage, disarming them one by one, breaking their sticks with swift kicks, and subduing them until they could no longer deny the truth. They had never been predators at all, only cowards who preyed on the seemingly weak, and in facing Amara, they had been forced to see their own fragility, and so, beaten not just physically but morally, they left her alone for good, some even carrying quiet shame that slowly turned into respect, and in time, the story of the black farm girl who was a deadly martial artist became a tale not of violence but of transformation, because those same bullies, years later, would tell others how one girl taught them humility, how one farm girl shattered their arrogance and changed their lives, and Amara herself would grow into a symbol of resilience, proof that strength lies not in wealth, status, or appearance, but in discipline, spirit, and the courage to stand tall even when underestimated. And so her life, once quiet and hidden, became the kind of story whispered in awe, of a girl who looked like prey but fought like a warrior, who carried the soil of her farm on her boots and the wisdom of martial arts in her soul, who turned cruelty into silence and bullies into believers, and who, above all, lived by the lesson her grandfather had given her. Power is not in the fist, but in the heart that knows when to use it.